Okay,
Are you ready, Kathleen?
you're all set.
Okay. Good evening. This is the Inland Wetlands Commission of New Canaan of December 20th, 2021. Will the secretary take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Stepanek.
Here.
Mr. Stepanek,
Here,
Miss Brunali,
absent.
Miss Kirby,
Here.
Mr. Sillo,
Absent.
Miss Perkins,
Here.
Miss Ross,
Here.
Miss Royke, and then Miss Jameson, yes.
I'd like to seat Penny, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you substitute for whom is Beth
Yes,
Bernelli?
I will. Yes, I will.
Okay. You all have a copy of the agenda. Are there any comments? If not, can I hear a motion?
I'll move to
Move we
approve.
accept the agenda.
Who's gonna second it?
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor, raise your hands. Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, November 15th. Any comments? Who's gonna make a motion?
I move approval.
Okay,
Second.
I'll second it. I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The site visit meeting minutes of November 30th. You all have a copy of that. Any comments? If not, can I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Peggy,
I'll second.
George, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And
Number
I'm abstaining as I didn't attend the official site visit. I did my own.
Okay. Number 6, applications to be received and if complete, scheduled for regular meeting January 24th. It should be Kathleen, 2022. You have 2021 down there.
Good catch. Now, I had you proofread that. You missed it.
Oh. Oh, any other comments? Can I hear a motion? I make a motion also. Who's gonna second it?
I'll second it.
All right, Peggy, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Application number 212220, 340 Country Club Road. This would be for the January meeting. Number 8, schedule site visit for that on January 12th at January 12th at 7:30 a.m. Let's go into, is that a Wednesday, Kathleen?
I believe it is.
Yep.
Yes.
Is there anyone that can't make that site visit? I can't make it, I know that.
I may not be able to make it. Every other Wednesday, I have something that started this summer, and I'm trying to think whether that is one that actually, I think I will be able to do that one. Never mind, because I'll be going the weekend.
All right, Peggy, George, what about you? George?
I'm good. You know, unless something comes up, I don't see any problem.
Priscilla?
I'm going to try and make it.
Oh, good. Okay, that's 3. Penny,
Yeah, yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
you're okay? And Priscilla?
Yes, I think so.
Good. Okay, all right. So it's set now for January 12th, the site visit. Open regular meeting. Here we go. Application number 212212, 34 Brayburn Drive and 50 Brayburn Drive. This is a joint application between 2 neighboring properties sharing a pond. This particular application was carried over from November. And Joe, Is that
Yes.
you? You're
Yes.
Joe Grotto? No.
Oh, no,
Right?
that's the wrong name. I don't know how to change the name.
So you're Joe Sanitario?
Santa Cero. Santa Cero.
Okay. You're with All Terrain Services. So you may begin the application presentation if you like.
Oh, okay. We spoke last time on the procedure, what I was going to do. I actually wrote the actual procedure down for you guys. Hopefully you guys got a copy of it. And we're basically going to be dredging the pond, the entire pond out, and putting all the silt into the woods, into the upland 50-foot area away from the wetlands, and grading it off and dewatering. And there are some trees I'd like to take down that are half uprooting, that are leaning into the pond, and they will fall eventually. I did tag those in blue, and I'd like to get permission to also take those down if possible. And I'd also like to clean out this spillway, which is going towards the street, because that's all filled up with leaves and debris. And any trees that are in the pond, we were going to take out and remove. And we're not going to touch the stumps unless you guys give us permission to take the stumps out. I like to leave the stumps in for stabilization, but if you guys say take the stumps out, then we could take those out also.
Well, you're not allowed to take the stumps out.
What's that?
You're not allowed to take the stumps out, no.
Okay, yeah. I've never done it before, so I didn't know if we
Yeah.
were allowed to or not.
No.
So, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you, Joe, if you haven't finished.
Are you finished, Joe?
Yeah, that's basically the same stuff we spoke about last time.
Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe we can put up a map and you can walk us through it. That would be very helpful.
Okay. I don't know how to do that. I have the map, the physical copy with me, which I could put behind my head, I guess, but I don't know how to put it onto the screen there.
Well, we've got
We have
maps.
yeah.
We can put them up. So
Okay.
should we be looking at the sketch map that we were given?
You can look at we had one done by the surveyor, and that has all the wetland flags on it. So I could basically walk you through it by looking at the wetland flag numbers, because that basically gives me a good point of reference of where we're dewatering, putting the pump and everything else. So if you guys have a copy of this, the paper, I have the paper map in front of me. You guys probably you might have a digital copy in front of you. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Well, this is the copy. I don't know. Can you see this? This is what we have. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk you through it if you need me to just talk you through it.
Yeah. Are we looking at the soil scientist map or the original plan that you submitted?
I would probably look at the original one, because the only thing that's changed is that he flagged the entire pond since then, since we last spoke. The soil scientist just went back there and he went around the entire pond.
Okay. Well, maybe you'd be nice enough. It's a while since since you talked us through it, and we had lots of questions last time. If you would be nice enough just to talk us through the process and
Sure.
Tell us where to be looking on the map.
Sure. So we're gonna put the dewatering pump between the wetland flags 10 and 9, which is if you go up the driveway, it's on the left-hand side. That's basically where the spillway is, and you'll see the pond comes down to a skinny, it goes wide down where it gets narrow. We're going to put the dewatering pump right between those wetland flags, between 10 and 9, or 10 and 8, depending on what was most convenient for us. And that's basically where the pond starts to go into the spillway. So we're going to start there with the dewatering, and then once that's all, the pump is set up and we have all that in place, we're gonna take all the debris out, whatever, because there's a couple trees that fell down into the pond, so we'll take those out first. And then we'll also do any of the tree work that needs to be done around the pond before we even start with the actual digging, removal of the silt. And then once that's all done and established, we lay down plastic mats going to the pond, and we also lay down plastic mats going from the pond over to where we're gonna put the spoilage of all the silt. So that way we're literally not even touching the ground. We literally stay on the mats the entire time. There's zero impact to anything where we work. And then what we'll do is we'll set up a staging area. As we need to reach to pull the silt out, we'll move the mats around accordingly to where we need to reach out. But again, we'll stay on the mats and we reach into the pond from different areas from around the pond. Again, not impact doing, we literally do zero impact when we do this stuff. And then all the silt is gonna go to the right, basically on this map where it says parcel 2 area. If there's an area up there, which I marked, I actually have a cone in the woods. And that's 50 feet past the upland review area. And that's, there's plenty of room. There's probably half an acre or more up there where we could grade out the silt and you won't even know that it's there. It won't impact anything. And that's about it. I mean, we're gonna dig it out to its original size, original depth. And then anything we disturb as far as grass or soil, we'll seed that. And in the woods, the homeowner said to me, she goes, I don't want to do grass in the woods, but the grade, the topography is so flat, we could literally spread it out and just probably put leaves back on top and you won't even know that we were there, to be honest with you. There'll be zero impact. When we're done, it'll look just like normal woods. Shouldn't impact anyone else.
Joe, I have a quick question for you. When you talk about the trees, about, well, exactly how many trees are you intending to cut down?
So I marked down, a lot of them are really small. A lot of them are like 10 to 12 inch type trees, but if you actually physically walk around, you'll see some of them are ripping out of the ground, and they are going to end up in the pond. So there's approximately 10 to 12, but
Okay.
they're not that large. And I could, if you want me to measure, I could actually measure each tree if that helps you guys too. But I did tag them with blue ribbon, and they're all tagged with blue ribbon.
And of the 10 to 12, are any of them dead trees, or are they just leaning trees, or how would you describe them?
Some are dead, some are alive, and there's actually one really large tree that broke and is actually hanging in another tree. It's still hanging in the air. So we know for a fact that one's going to end up in the pond because it's literally just still hanging up there. That's pretty large. That's probably 36-inch diameter. That's probably a 3-foot tree at least, maybe even larger. It's got a big hole in it and it's broken in the over the pond. But there'll still be plenty of trees around the pond. I just want to take the ones that are on a hard angle that we know are going to end up falling in there.
May I ask something?
Of course.
Yes, go ahead, Tony.
Is the large tree an ash tree?
No, it's actually a maple that looks like it rotted, and it looks like the wind ripped it down. It literally ripped from its base.
Thank you.
So
Look.
I believe when we first discussed this application, you weren't sure how much of the pond you were going to dredge. And it sounded as though you weren't going to dredge the whole pond. And now I believe we're hearing that you're going to do the whole thing. So what's changed?
No, I always was going to do the whole pond,
Mhm.
but I think there's communication between myself and you guys of what we're doing, but I've always intended on doing the whole pond. I think last time we weren't sure last time about where the pond started and the woods began. I think that was
Mhm.
the problem last time. Now that we've walked it, we had the soil scientists there. Now you could see, I mean, if you go there now, there's no leaves on anything. You could see the edge of the pond. I mean, it's pretty obvious now.
So how are you going to get the trees that are in the pond out? Talk us through that.
So we'll put a chain around them, and then we'll pick them up with a machine, and we'll literally just lift them out of the water.
Okay, so the machine's going to be situated where?
It'll be on the shoreline, on top of the mats, and we'll reach over and we'll be able to pull them out.
And how far up the pond are you going to need to move that machinery to get all the trees that are in the pond out?
So I'll need to go, I can stay on the right side and I can go all the way up to where the D is in the pond, where the pond opens up, where the large body of water is, where it says pond up there, probably where the D is. I could probably reach everything from, if you look on the map, there's that, the other writing where it says pond up there. I don't
Okay,
need to go all the way around. I could do everything from the one side.
so that's on the Hevesy property, right?
Yes, the majority of the trees are on the right side because they're reaching for the sun.
Yeah.
So they're growing at an angle towards the pond. So in other words, they're on the right side growing towards the left because that's where the sun is. So they grew towards the left at an angle.
Joe, what about downstream? You're gonna have a filter of some sort to block
Yes.
any debris that's flowing downstream because, and that, if I remember correctly, that pond or that brook flows right into a neighbor's right across the street, right?
Exactly. So what we do when we dewater, we have a basket. We call it a basket, but the inlet pipe has like a metal filter on it. So that stops any large debris from going in. And then we also put the inlet pipe in a big pile of gravel with fabric. So that way stops all the fine debris from going in. And then once the water comes out of the pump, we also take the outlet pipe, put it again in another thing of gravel and another thing of fabric. So that way there's no rush of water pushing out of the spillway there. And then we also, since the way this is situated, we have a special fabric that we're going to put along the pipe where the street is. So that way there won't be any sediment, no debris, no leaves. It'll just be like a rainstorm. The same stuff, it'll be the same result as a rainstorm. In fact, we're going to catch more because no leaves will go downstream, no debris will go downstream because we'll have that fabric on the, it's called a head wall, on the head wall before it goes under the street. So the only thing that'll flow through to the neighbor will be water.
That sounds good to me, yeah.
Yeah, we do. We try to keep it so it doesn't impact anyone else.
Yeah.
We don't want to get mad.
Have you talked to the neighbor across the street where the water flows?
No, I want to go over there and physically talk to him so I could show him. I could even bring him the fabric. But I only submitted the paperwork to you guys and I wasn't able to talk to him. I have to find his number and stuff.
So what do you see as the biggest challenges with this project?
The biggest challenge, well, it's always moving the mats because the mats, you gotta constantly move them. But that's probably it. It's just moving the mats. It's always a challenge for us because we try to stay on the mats and they're heavy, so we got to move them in an area. But the thing is, once we get set up, it goes pretty smoothly. The hardest part is just really getting organized and set up. I mean, the dewatering takes time to get the pumps put in the right position. That takes almost a day just trying to get the dewatering correct. But I think the biggest challenge is probably just moving around with the mats. I mean, that's our always biggest problem every time we do a job like this.
I have a comment. Hello?
Go ahead, Tony. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I think it's really important that the homeowner across the road know exactly what's going to happen, because after the site visit, as Priscilla and I left together, we noticed that pond was in really good shape. And it looks like pains have been taken to maintain it. So I can't understand why that neighbor hasn't been contacted.
Penny, just to correct the record, all neighbors were contacted, and I have received communication from one of the downstream neighbors. He's aware of the application. He reviewed the application. If you remember, he did put in a little written comment, which came up at the last meeting regarding making sure that the dewatering operation is done correctly. And he was more concerned about debris, floatable debris coming downstream, because that's what they're receiving a lot of on storm events. So they're not objecting to the dredging, and is my opinion of what conversations or communications I've had with those folks. So they are aware, and he has reviewed the application. I've had no other communications from him since I guess it was October. Potentially they may be away for this time. I'm not certain. So, but all neighbors have been notified, that the application is pending, and they have reviewed it.
Good.
Yeah, I did also, I certified mailed everyone. I actually have the receipts right here. So everyone was sent a certified letter of what I was doing. So everyone is aware of what I'm going to do.
And when do you I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Angela.
When do you plan to start, and how long is it going to take you?
Well, we always have to work around the weather. So once we're approved, we'd probably start in January, and hopefully we don't get a lot of snow, because the snow sometimes slows us up. But actually, the cold works with us. The rain slows us down, obviously. The snow slows us down. But I would like to start in January if we could, and depending on weather, it'll take us, probably 3 weeks at the most, depending on basically the weather. We got to work around the weather. Sometimes we could do as little as a week. Because there's tree work involved, it's going to take longer. But I'd say 3 weeks at the absolute latest.
Joe, I'm looking at a report that you did on November 25th, and you make reference to the fact that if there's areas of the pond that you can't access, you'll use timber framing or alternates, I guess. But the timber framing, would that be on the sides of the pond for supporting the sides of it, or how would that work?
So what we do is, with the timber framing, acts like our base. So what we do is we put them right along the shoreline, and it enables us to push the machine out a little further. So we're actually sitting on a timber framing instead of sitting on the shoreline. We reach over into the water a little bit, and we sit on a timber framing. So it's kind of like cribbing to extend us out a little bit further.
And what are the odds that you're going to have to do that, do you think?
Looking over here, we might have to do it the upper right-hand area of the pond. We might have to do it.
Okay.
I have a question. Joe, at one point you had mentioned in the last presentation that you might have to take heavy equipment down into the pond if necessary. Has that been covered? And what's your feeling about that?
Yeah, so we always sit on the mats. I mean, even when we're doing like small residential stuff, we use the mats, because they literally, like, if say we had to come to your house and we had to do something on a pristine lawn, we put the mats down. We could run a large machine over it, and you don't even know we were there. We literally pick the mats up, and it looks like we didn't even touch your lawn. So we always put the mats down everywhere we go, not only just because of the ground pressure, but it makes it easier for us, because in the long run, we don't have to do any cleanup. So it's hard to move the mats around, but once they're down, it's very simple. You just literally can drive right over them, and you won't even know that we were there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe, are you familiar with Otto Theo's report, the one pager
I
on
saw
soil? Well, there's something here at the end of the third paragraph that I don't quite understand. He's got it in bold letters too. It says, the results of this investigation are subject to change until accepted by Inland Wetlands Commission of New Canaan. I'm not quite clear what that means.
he usually puts that on his reports, because wetlands could change in time, but I mean, this is something that we're doing now, not 10 years from now. So he kind of puts that there because, hey, if we have a tsunami, it's going to change where the wetlands are. But he just puts that there as to cover himself.
To cover himself, huh? Yeah.
Otto actually has that I'm pretty sure, almost every report that he writes, because until you review the report and it goes through this process of what we're doing right now, that finalizes the flagging of the wetlands that he recently did. So that's very standard. So like 5 years from now, let's say another homeowner's at this property and they decide to alter the wetlands. So that's the point in time that it potentially could change. We hope that doesn't happen, but that is a standard thing that he does put in his report. I believe I've seen it in other soil scientists as well.
So if we wait 5 years, which we're not, but would he expect us to ask him to do another investigative report? Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
But that's not the case. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, you know, also, Dan, what if someone came there and filled in the wetlands, right? So then that would change where the wetlands are. So that's kind of why Otto puts that in there, because people might come in and disturb things without getting permission, and he's not responsible. He kind of like does that to cover himself.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering whether there's anything special about this project, Kathleen, that ought to be taken into account when we, you know, come to the point of reaching a conclusion.
I think at this point, you do have a proposal for a dredging of a pond that's not been dredged in 30 plus years. So you are looking at, you know, a small to medium sized pond that does need to be dredged. We clearly all saw that on the site visit, whether we did it together independently. I think what Joe said is true. Once he gets set up, gets staged, gets his dewatering going, you know, 2-3 weeks, he'll be in and out. And it's the prep and the paperwork and the details that are so important. So I think we're close to having everything we need in order to make a decision. And I really can't think of anything from a special condition point of view, because it truly is, it's maintenance of an existing pond that needs to be dredged.
Certainly needs it. There's no question, you know. Anybody else? Peggy, did you want to raise? No? George?
Yeah, I do think that will enhance the neighbor's property as well. If you'll have pristine ponds on either side of the road, it certainly is going to be a lot more attractive. So
Anyone else?
I think the neighbor's probably looking forward to him getting it done.
Oh, yeah. Priscilla, anything? Joe, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Dan. It'll definitely be less impact in the long run for the neighbor, because the debris won't be going down through, you know, under the road anymore. Once we clean up the debris, it'll help the neighbor out also.
All right. Any other comments? Can I hear a motion?
I move we accept the proposal.
I second that.
Kathleen, no special issues, no specialties on this one?
No, I really can't think of anything. It truly is cleaning up of the pond. We now have a good record of where the wetlands are located on both parcels. We now have a survey with the complete flagging of the wetlands. All of this information will become documented and put into our online file. It already is. I'll be out periodically as he goes forward with his actual dredging project and overseeing, you know, sort of the highlights of the dredging, and we'll do a final inspection when he's ready. Are you thinking of anything in particular that maybe I'm not thinking of?
I guess the only thing, but I think you've covered it, Joe, is making sure that no debris from this dredging a pond gets into the neighbor's pond. I mean, it's just like Penny said, it's pristine, and the neighbor takes great care in making sure that that pond is pristine. And I just wouldn't want anything to, to hinder that or stop that. And so I do think that he should be, this should be discussed with him, really. And he might have an idea.
I can go speak to him if you like.
Okay.
Also, the standard conditions of the permit actually cover exactly what you're saying, one of the, or more than one of the standard conditions. So there's 15 standard conditions in any permit that we issue. So it is kind of covered in both ways. It's covered in the application. It's covered on the record that Joe has stated. He's gonna, do everything possible to make sure we don't have any issues downstream in the event that something happens with a sudden storm or malfunction of something. I'm sure he will, be responsible and take care of any issue that would arise. Yeah, I mean, reaching out to the neighbor is not a bad thing to do. Certainly sounds like he's agreed to do that.
Good. All right, we heard the motion. Can we vote on this? All those in favor of approving this application, raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone that's opposed to the application, raise your hand. All right, the motion is carried, Joe. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Okay. Application number 212213, 807 Smith Ridge Road and lot 141. This application is being continued and it was not heard at the November meeting. Kate, are you presenting this, Kate?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good evening, I should say. For the record, Kate Throckmorton, a licensed landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions. And if I may, I'll share my screen and walk you through some of the things. So this is a property survey of the entire property with Smith Ridge Road to your left. The existing residence centrally located and the area that slopes down to the Poorhouse Brook on the right-hand side of the property. This is just to give you an overview. It's a little more than 14 acres in total. There's 2 legal parcels, one at the bottom of the page and a second one at the top of the page. The top lot is undeveloped with the southern lot with the residence and other improvements. I'm going to go to my site plan, which really just focuses on the central portion of the site and this area of the pond and this location, if I may. I've added some color just for clarity for the meeting. This is the site plan that was prepared. The house is located off to the lower left-hand portion of the page. There's the existing pool that's here, existing pool house, existing driveway that comes down around to the back of the pool house. The property slopes down from the house roughly 15 or 20 feet to a large open lawn area and the Poorhouse Brook to the right, which is highlighted in blue. The area that's hatched, diagonally hatched in green is the wooded area on the property. The wetlands was flagged in 2007 with the associated work that had to do with this pool and pool house. That line is highlighted in green. I'm just going to follow along. It runs this essentially right here, which is roughly at a bottom mid slope. This continues down. The existing lawn is essentially consisting of these 2 areas that are green. Then the remaining area is also all wetlands, except for there's several upland exclusion areas that are not wetlands. And the property runs to the back property line, which is wooded. Now, this was actually submitted back in August. I think it originally discussed in October. Jean and I were not involved in any of the prior applications. And so when it came to the site plan, or the site walk, I should say, when the commission and Kathleen came out, they noticed some changes in the property that needed to be addressed. So the primary purpose of this application was to dredge this existing pond right here. There's an existing dam, if you've been there. It's a very old established pond, and it's considerably silted. There are some trees that need to come down to access the pond. But secondarily, we had to go back and revisit some of the areas. When the Bly's purchased the property, this lower area was mostly a meadow, and its current condition is a lawn. So this happened over the last couple of years when the Bly's recently purchased a property and had done the pool improvements, and we're doing a little more exploring on their property. They noticed that there was a fair amount of old debris, and the meadow had started to get some woody trees and shrubs into it. So they took it upon themselves to do a little house cleaning, and the more they looked, the more they found as far as debris and old farm material. So the area was cleaned up significantly, but in the process, a fair amount of disturbance occurred and the area was seeded. And then as kind of a default, it ended up being transformed into a lawn by the landscape company. So recognizing all these things, we changed the application, or I should say expanded the application to include reestablishment back to a wetland meadow, and actually expanding the area that previously existed. The previous delineation of the lawn is this line right here, which was an old fence line that we took off of an old survey. And so not only are we going to reestablish the lower portion of the meadow into an herbaceous native meadow, but we're also going to be expanding it slightly uphill, so there will be less lawn than previously recorded, and adding kind of a whole new buffer and woodland edge to the meadow with native trees and shrubs. Also in this process, Kathleen asked us to double check the wetland line. So we did have Paul Jennig come out. He did check the line. The area was reflagged, and it was substantially the same. The prior owner had done some disturbance around the pond, and so there is an area here that was excluded or expanded, an upland area. But because the original wetland line from 2007 showed the larger wetland areas, we're going to maintain and use those as the recognized wetland line ongoing. So there was a couple of changes besides just the meadow that needed to be recognized and included in the plan. One was there were some trees that were taken down maybe prematurely. I think that the Bly's were very excited about this project and had some trees taken down around the pond. Most of them were ash and in decline, and also slated to come out for the pond. And those are these trees kind of noted in these little black circles. And also around the area of access, there'll be probably about 7 to 8 trees taken out just for the access, including the trees that have already come out and the ones that need to come out. I'm going to let Jean Nazaro go over the details on the process of the pond dredging, but I just wanted to give you a little background and orientation on this and how we were going to make sure we brought it back to what was previously recorded in 2007. And just to get you orientated as well, the access for the machines are going to come off the driveway along this area here. There's going to be a haul road. The spoils are going to stay on the site, and this light brown area is a designation for the dredge spoils. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gene so he can go over all the details of the pond, because that was really the primary focus of the original application.
Good evening, folks. Am I on mute here or no? No, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure here, not the techie guy here. Well, good evening. Well done, Kate. Thank you. The pond itself, it will be a dewatered. First of all, equipment mobilization will come into play. Preparing our spoil area, which is Kate had indicated will be up in the upper brown area. We need to set up a temporary coffer dam with sandbags, most likely sandbags, to capture the water, to bypass the flow that's coming in. That's where the pump will intercept the water, bypass the pond. Then draw the water down within the pond for our work area. Our equipment access is shown as Kate has indicated on the plan. One thing that needs to be discussed is also a runoff area that leads into the pond from the western slope of the area of the pond there. Thank you, Kate. You got the pointer there. And combine the two, there's a couple of wet areas in there, basically seasonal flow from the one on the southern end of it. And when it comes from the east, it's more of the significant flow. The area in there needs to have a small sediment trap, utilizing the rock that comes out of the pond. There's a small stone wall. It's kind of an odd little three-sided wall that's built there. Retrieve that rock, utilize, it's all nice field stone as far as repurposing the rock itself. Line the plunge pool or sediment trap, if you will, in that area. And then continuing on upstream to the west, that also needs to have some more armor coating to stabilize the shoreline, as well as an energy dissipator to try to slow that flow down to keep the scouring effect that's going on within the pond. The haul road is certainly adequate for utilizing the equipment for being an all-wheel drive truck, off-road truck, hauling it up there, pulling up and then backing into the dump site or the spoil area. When I say preparing the spoil area, gathering some of the material that's there and building a containment berm, then dumping the material, the spoils within that. And then once they begin to dry and shrink, basically grade that off to a moderate slope. So there's sheet flow going across the top of that, and seed and mulch it. And Kate also indicated on the plan above the spoil area to the west-hand side to build a high point in that to divert the sheet flow coming off of the hill on both sides of that proposed spoil area. So to minimize any wash or erosion that could occur because of the sheet flow from the neighboring properties. The job itself is a relatively easy exercise for us to do. Every pond has its challenges. The eastern side of the pond has a significant, beautiful growth of rhododendron in that. And those branches will be tied back throughout the process and then released back into their natural position once the pond activity the dredging has occurred. It's a good hard bottom in that because it's riverbed. There's nothing like a peat bog or unstable soil in there. It's just really sediment in a sand mixture to that. With that being said, it's relatively easy material to handle. The outlet structure and dam, no modifications or work is to be performed on that. There's really appears to be in good shape, so just let it be. We stay away from the dam itself during the excavation process, not to compromise any of the integrity of the rock or the dam. And to the eastern side of that, the southeast side, there's an outlet now. There's a control point of the flow right now. That's your high water mark. That's your control point. And nothing is to be modified or altered on that as well. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them for you.
I have a question for Kate. Hello?
Yes?
Kate, I'm looking at this very extensive and really admirable plant list that you have. I'm wondering why that depressed area, I would call it a depressed area of Phragmites, is going to be allowed to remain.
That's a good question. I would say that I think that's probably going to be slated for a long-term control project, and the owners were just not ready to take that on at the moment. They did want to do probably some, very minor replanting of cattails and kind of a long-term, less aggressive maintenance on that. But I do appreciate that comment, but I think with this project, we were kind of trying to address previous impacts and trying to get the pond cleaned up. And we just didn't want to get overly ambitious. It's a fairly big area, and we wanted to kind of break this up into several long-term projects. And these permits run for about 10 years. So this was the amount of work that the owners were ready to bite off and take on at this time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, some people think Phragmites are actually good looking, as you know.
Yes, I believe the homeowner does like the Phragmites. They do attract a lot of birds, but she's aware of its invasive nature. And as Kate described, we did have that discussion regarding, potential future maintenance and maybe, down the line, perhaps coming back with a plan to manage it to something that would be more natural.
I'm just gonna add what I wanted to, because Kate did a great job on that. I just wanted to mention, I know Kathleen, we didn't have the permit for the pool house, and it was in 2016. So that 2007 survey, we were never aware of. That must have been done by the previous owners.
Right,
And then
that's right.
The confusion about the wetland piece for us was more so because of the area there where it says upland. We thought that that was outside of the wooded area. And now coming with the new survey, we found that that is indeed within the wooded area. So we were thinking that that flat bottom part of the lawn area was actually, not wetland. But now we are aware of where all of these things are. And then the Phragmites, I mean, really, we didn't want to disturb anything that was that permanent. So that's just our ignorance about, those being invasive and being able to be replaced. So down the road, but as you can imagine, this project already has a good cost to it. And so, hopefully down the road, we will be able to address that.
So I just have a couple of questions for Kate, and I think that the meadow will look really nice when it's restored, and I think that Mrs. Beale will actually like the look of it better than the lawn that you had. But Kate, I'm just intrigued by these areas in the wooded area that aren't wetlands. Is that due to the topography, or would they at one time have been wetlands?
I don't know. I didn't actually have a long conversation with Paul Jenig, but Kathleen and I did talk about that. And we actually suspected that they might be very old spoils that were probably dredged from the pond years and years and years ago, and or the brook. The topography is not very distinct. And the trees that are in those areas are fairly large now. So just from the location of where they are, it just seems like it's a logical place that they might have been, dredge spoils, and just enough soil was placed there to disqualify them for being wetlands.
I think that's very interesting. And I do recognize that this happened, years, if not decades ago, but I think it just demonstrates to us what can happen to wetlands if spoils, say from dredging a pond, are put in wetlands rather than, going through the application process and making sure that they are actually well and truly in the upland area. So my second question relates to the fire pit. Can you point to us where that is on this map, please?
Yes, let me see. It is right here. And so
Okay.
that is one thing that we're asking to remain. It's kind of right at the edge. This area, this circle is also one area of the that were uplands. So this is upland and these little areas are upland. So it's kind of right at the edge of the upland area. And we're asking for that to remain.
So the fire pit is in the wetlands.
Correct.
Do you very often submit an application for landscaping project where you have cited a fire pit in the wetlands?
No, but this is an existing fire pit. It was there, and as far as I understand from historical information that's been passed down to me, that this was used as a skating pond, and as the Blythes were cleaning up, they included the placement of that, and we're asking for it to remain. So it's not actually proposed. We're asking that it be allowed to remain.
So what would be involved in actually removing the fire pit? What would need to happen?
Can I answer that? It's a kadai, so it's not built in. It sits on top of the stone that's there. There was old granite sitting there that was in a square, and we moved the granite to make a circle, and it takes 3 people to pick it up and lift it. And we have it there basically because what we do is collect fallen debris and we burn it. So that's the use of it. It's not like, we're doing parties down there or anything like that. It's really for cleanup.
Angela, if you haven't been there, it's actually a very large metal bowl.
Yes, no, I've seen it. Yes.
Okay.
I think
I'm sorry?
I was just saying, I think trying to move that and take the rock out and restore that into wetlands, in my opinion, or moving it to the small section of uplands, I think the disturbance, would be greater than the accomplishment of moving it. I think leaving it in place as it is now, it's best suited. I think the disturbance activity doesn't merit moving it into the small triangulated uplands area. If it's a wetlands, it's certainly not a functional wetlands where it's sitting. It's been graded off, the rocks around it, and the kettle or the fire pit is there. I think you do more damage than gain trying to move it.
Hello, this is
relocate it.
Penny. I must be misremembering, but it was my impression when we made the site visit that we were told that kettle had been brought in, not that it had been there for, from a previous owner, that it was brought in by the present owners. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It was ours. We had it on, had that particular kettle on the driveway behind the pool house, just had it sitting there. I purchased it for about $1,600. The stone was already down there. The only stone that was added was the white stone underneath the pit itself, so that in case embers fell off. But it is really just to clean out that area. It's not, we didn't really make any change to that area to put that there. It's considered to be part of the upland area, I think, still. So I don't know what benefit you would get out of that. Other than that, we'd have to haul all the wood that we collect to a different location to burn it.
Kate, is it doing any damage to the wetlands?
Well, that's a good question. Right now that area is kind of transitional. It is part of the old spoils area. That was actually also the area where, previous disturbance actually increased the upland review area just ever so slightly. The area will all be restored to a meadow condition. There will be paths going through the meadow, but the area will be allowed to revegetate. So, you know, whether
And
it's there
keeping
or,
this won't prevent that from
I'm
happening.
sorry?
Keeping this won't prevent that from happening. Like it's not going to do any damage by leaving it there, is it?
No.
So I
Joe?
have a question, I think probably for Jean, and that is it quite a slope, as we noticed when we did the site visit? Does that create any particular challenges for you when it comes to accessing the pond and then taking away the spoils, thinking about, you know, getting your machinery down there?
No, it does not really. The slope is not a concern to me. It's an all-wheel drive vehicle. It's
Mhm.
more than capable of traversing much more difficult slopes in topography, terrain than this presents. The only thing is in some areas we need to, excuse me, just regrade, fortify the road throughout the process. If necessary, we put mats down, timber mats, and drive upon them. But no, the slope itself, it's a good question, does not present an issue for us to deal with that.
Yeah, Gene, this is Dan. When I look at this map here, you know, it reminds me more of like a mini reservoir more than a pond, okay?
Mhm.
And in the dam part, does that, and we didn't get over there to see how wide that is, how much of a spillover there is. Is this in any way need to be looked at, the dam by the state? Is it big enough?
In my, it's a good question, Dan. In my estimation, that the dam itself is, gosh, is that thing at least 6 feet wide? I mean, you can walk across this thing, is quite substantial. Normally, whenever we dig a pond like this with a dam, I stay at least 5, 6 feet away from that before I even begin my taper and my slope down to the depth of the pond, maintaining a 2-to-1, sometimes a 3-to-1 slope, really depending on what the soil types are like here. Again, this is a hard river bottom in here, so really the process is just to remove the organics, the sediment that's accumulated in there. Once you reach the hard bottom, that's it, you stop. We never want to start dislodging rock, getting too close to that. It's an old dam, and given the shape of that pond, I would not be surprised if years ago that was an ice pond for harvesting ice for refrigeration. It's very common in these areas in southern Connecticut. No, I don't. In my estimation, Dan, I have no. The dam appears to be in very good working order, and to the real benefit of it, the outlet spillway is a significant width and really well built into the surrounding rock that's around that. I think everything's good. My gut feeling is everything is fine with it. I would just let it be and take the sediment out, and don't compromise the dam. I mean, in the past, I've had dams where I've had to clean right up to them and seal them with a liner. It's a whole different process. I don't think this pond merits that. If you could see, you know, during the actual dewatering, if something would come about that appears that, geez, it really should be addressed, and that's something I should, you know, notify Kathleen, or Mrs. Beal and Mr. Beal, first of all, of course, and Kate and Kathleen, is what we've found. But I don't anticipate even getting close enough to make that an issue of discoverance or unearthing anything in that area.
That's good. Where does the water go from the dam or from the pond?
It's
Does
Poorhouse Brook, and that meanders all the way down into, where would that go into? Geez, Silver Mine, I assume.
Silverman?
I would have to guess on that one. I haven't really followed the entire watershed beyond.
Right.
Probably, be honest with you, just give me a straight answer on it.
Does it back up when it really gets a heavy rain or a lot of water? Does it back up into
Well, to the north,
To the north, yeah,
not to my knowledge.
not to your knowledge, okay.
No, I mean, and be honest with you, Dan, I've never even noticed anything to where the dam's been overcapped with heavy rains or any scouring, particularly on the western side of the pond, where that real tight triangular or square area is. Do you mind? I've never witnessed anything that raises a concern that this dam is being compromised or is being overcapped with storm events. Mrs. Beal, could probably, you've seen more of the storms than all of us have.
The only thing that happened is, well, because it's more and more silted now, every year, just with the storms being worse, so there's a lot more leaf debris. So it kind of filled, I think you all saw on that center point, and it kind of has a natural dam in the middle. And that's my concern, was that it's going into the woods, and those trees are starting now to fail because they're being flooded on a regular basis there. So the perimeter of the pond is widening back above where, well, those trees that did come out, those were all dead already because they had been flooded for 2 years past. So that's really why we want to do it, to protect the woodland area around that side. The other side where the rhododendrons are, that's really steep, and that property's already been given to the Conservancy. So that's pretty protected. It seems to flood backwards. And plus we have new neighbors now with runoff and everything. So, but the dam itself, there was a big tree at the end that was failing when we bought the property, I think, because we could see it. That fell and we removed that. That was the only thing that's there. So there's a big stump trunk at the end that has a big hole in it, but it's been stable the whole time. But we've only seen it for about 3 or 4 years. So couldn't tell you before that.
Jane, this is George Perkins.
Yes.
What will be the approximate depth of those of the leaves that have been there forever? 5 or 6 feet, or have you estimated
Yeah,
that?
you probably have in the center, Mrs. Beal made a point about the sediment buildup that's in there now. And that's probably maybe a foot of water at times covering that. That's your maximum excavation in there. There's probably 4.5 to 5 feet of material to come out of there. Overall, you're looking at about a 3.5 foot average depth of sediment in the pond. Particularly going to the north, is less material in there. It's accumulated down towards the dam. And to Mrs. Beal's point also, that you have that buildup now in the center. And going back to Dan's question, if that, about breaching the dam, if that were to become an island in the center, now it's going to divert the water towards the east side, the rhododendron side, as well as push a lot more water to the west, southwest portion of that dam. So by removing that material in the center, you're certainly going to balance the effectiveness or the velocity of the water approaching the dam. It's going to come up to the dam and either have to go over it or find its way out to the spillway. So deepening that pond, giving more storage capacity, less blockage is certainly a plus in my estimation.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Kathleen? Kathleen?
I'm sorry. I had
Angela, I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
yeah, I'm sorry. I had muted myself. So so Jean, I'm just interested. How often does a pond like this need to be dredged?
That one's probably 30 years from now.
Okay, that's a long time.
I mean, I've had some ponds where even with the sediment basins and whatnot, they become an annuity. I've done some ponds 2 and 3 times over again because of the flow and the debris and if you want to blame it on climate change or these intense storms that we have. A pond like this, I don't see a reason that would not be a 30-year event before it even has to be addressed again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When will this begin or happen? The project?
Did you hear that, Gene?
Yeah, I gave you a big sign on that 'cause I'm trying to give you a straight answer.
Oh,
No, I have 3 ponds ahead of me right now, so I would say this will be tail end of the winter coming into the spring. And then that would be managed around storm events, what we have to do a job like that. The biggest trick to any of these jobs is water management. And once you have the water management under control, then the job is relatively routine. It's just that's the biggest trick. If you have heavy rains in a spring storm, you don't attack it or challenge it because nature's going to win. But I would say end of winter, early spring. We might forecast on that. If it could be sooner, that would be great. As I said, the kind of job you could do certainly in the wintertime. It's not an issue for us to take on. So perhaps in February, we could get after it.
okay.
It'd
Dr.
be
Beal,
ideal to have some
do
frost.
you have
in the
anything
ground.
you want to say? Dr. Beal, do you have anything you want to say?
The timing on it for us, I mean, I love to not have contractors on my property in the summer just because I have the grandkids here. So, I mean, if it has to go into next fall, that's okay too. I mean, the springtime is when that stream is most active. So, starting like in April, I think it would be very difficult to do. So if it doesn't happen before then, I think we would have to wait until, August when it dries up. In August, the flow is pretty close to dry.
Right.
In the spring, it's very active.
Well, we'd really like to, we've been working with Mr. and Mrs. Beal on this for a long time now. And I'd certainly like to get the job done prior to spring and they can enjoy their yard and get everything replanted and established. But that's timing wise, that's the best I could shoot for, being this sometime in the wintertime. And if not, we'll have to deal with it when weather allows us to. Stream flow. But I certainly want to disappoint our good clients, I can tell you that. Or the commission, we do it the right way and have it be successful for everyone.
Kathleen, do you have anything to add?
Nope, I agree with the homeowner's observation regarding the flow. I'm sure this one turns into quite a spring high flows. So that would be a very, very challenging time, I think, for the dredger to be in there. And I don't think he wants to be in there. So it sounds like at that time. So if it did have to wait till August, if we got a dry August, that would be a good time. Then also the re-landscaping and establishing the meadow, Kate can speak to that a little bit, might be a good time to, roll that into a fall project. The only potential special condition was the overseeing of the landscaping completion, like a final report from the landscape architect regarding the installation of the meadow and all the landscaping trees, shrubs, final report and inspection would be my only suggested special condition recommended.
The only other thing I can add too is that I know where Gene has all his, work roads and stuff, we can already start establishing, I mean, if it were to be delayed, we can establish the meadow on the other side of the phragmites before the pond work is done, so.
True.
All right. Kathleen, will you go over that special condition again as a possibility?
That
Go ahead.
that the land, upon completion of the implementation of the landscape architect's plan with the meadow establishment and all the shrubbery, trees, grasses to be installed, that final inspection be made by the landscape architect with the final report overseeing the conditions of that particular part of the application. And they submit that to the staff.
I see. Any other comments, questions?
Here's one more question, just on that piece there. If we end up doing modifications with trees and such, just because of availability and all that other stuff, I mean, how would that work? Does that have to be as specific as this plan? I mean, Kate would probably know better, but that's just a question.
So are you saying, you're asking if additions were made after we approve this, or?
No, I'm just saying, like, each one of these trees are marked as to what they are and the
oh.
location. So I just want to know, is like, what if, I can't get a pepperidge tree and we end up changing it to another kind of tree?
Oh, I
Like,
see.
how will that work?
That is something that can be oftentimes just worked out with staff, and it's totally up to the commission. But we have had that situation before where just the plant stock isn't available. And I always defer to the landscape architect as the professional if they want to swap out a different type of a tree, that we stick closely to the numbers, types, and sizes that you have indicated on the plan, and not types, sorry, numbers and sizes. And then if the type changes, that we get a supplemental report of what those changes are prior to going forward. That's usually how we've handled these in the past.
Okay. Anything else? Joe, do you want to say, Gene, do you want to say anything else?
No, I think it's, I'm good with it. Like I said, like schedule wise, try to move it up as quickly as we can to achieve this, for the Beals, to get this done, for their springtime plantings and enjoyment. So it's certainly our motivation to get it done for them. And I believe it's a very good plan that Kate's put together and work with the commission on this.
Kate, any last words?
No, I think we've covered all the bases. Thank you.
All right, can I hear a motion? What that special condition, I believe, I like that, yeah.
So I move that we approve the application with the special condition of a final report from the landscape architect when the landscaping project is complete.
Second.
And George seconds it. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much, everyone.
That was a
Have a
very good
wonderful Christmas.
presentation. Yeah, very good presentation. I
It's
thought.
going to be beautiful when it's finished.
Yeah.
Be a lovely meadow.
Good
All
night.
right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
very
for your
much.
time.
Yeah,
Greatly appreciated. Bye.
bye. All righty, just one more thing. We have an administrative report here. Kathleen, issued to the town of New Canaan.
This was a request from the town engineering department regarding a installation of a pipe in order to alleviate some flooding conditions. That there's a little cabin in Kiwanis Park that the Mary B Girl Scouts utilize. So I see Priscilla shaking her head. She's familiar with the problem, having been involved with them for quite some time. So they have it's obviously, the rivers near the area. So it was a pipe activity in asphalt in order to alleviate the direction of water that was flowing literally, I guess, down the front walk into the Mary B cabin. So that was issued, and I don't know. I think they had going to actually get going on it. I haven't been into the park yet, but they were hoping to. But then I think Christmas tree sales took over the park, so they may be getting to it shortly. But it had been on the town's radar for a little while, and they finally did come together with a plan, and an administrative wetland application was required.
Okay. All righty, well, here we are at the end of the year, and I sincerely want to thank everyone for your participation, your decision-making, the fine work you've done in this year, and really hope that you have a happy holidays, and in 2022, I hope it's just great and tremendous for everybody. So
Thank you.
And the
Yeah.
same to you and everybody
Yeah.
else.
Thank you.
Exactly. Let's hope 22 is better than 21 and 20.
That's.
Oh, it's gotta be.
And a big thank you to you, Dan and Kathleen, for being such super leaders.
Thank you, everyone. Great job.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
group.
very much.
Okay.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays, Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
Happy and
whatever.
healthy.
Okay.
George, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will do that.
All right.
I move we adjourn.
Second it.
And- All right, Peggy. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you. We'll
Bye-bye.
see you on January
now.
24th, I believe, right? 24th.
Okay.